I was a guest on the speaking podcast with Roy Coughlan, and he asked, how did I get on Grant Cardone TV? So I gave away the strategy in our interview. I also shared all the mistakes, all the lessons that I've picked up running a content marketing agency, creating thousands of videos and written posts for niche business owners over recent years, so you don't have to make the same mistakes, and give you a shortcut to success. I also share a little bit about my personal journey and going down the podcasting route and approaching episode 70. Would I do it again, starting from scratch? So you can pick up all that in our interview, which I'm about to share with you on the Content Marketing Podcast this week. Let's go to that conversation right now.
I'm actually looking forward to this. I love marketing, and I was watching a few of the videos and everything. So I suppose let's kind of learn a bit more about Aaron first, your own kind of journey.
Yeah, well, it all started 14 years ago. Oddly enough, started the iterations of a marketing agency. And back then, there weren't some of the platforms that exist today. And initially, I was just selling digital products online. And back then, you could just set up a Google ad, write sales copy, drive cheap traffic, and sell an ebook. And it was pretty simple. And then a few people in the network started asking, can you do that for us? We didn't know how to do anything online. That's kind of how the agency got started. And then it's morphed over 14 years from doing sort of end-to-end based services to specializing in content creation. And the reason why I went down that path is I'm terrible with my hands. I can't draw, I can't write, I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't sing, I can't play an instrument, I can't fix things. But the one thing I have always been able to do is speak. It has been able to do copywriting. So it's kind of like my creative outlet. So I kind of merged where I feel like I get my creative hit with what we do as a business, which has been a nice transition over the years.
And I think we need to kind of learn on that as well, because sometimes people try to be able to do everything, or they have somebody that's kind of pushing them. You must do this. When you don't like something, don't force yourself to do it. You can pay somebody to do the things you don't like to do, and you specialize in what you're good at, and then you create the income to be able to pay for the other stuff that you don't like.
That's a really good point. I think we're in a lane that a lot of people don't want to do, which is content creation, because it is time consuming. It takes mental energy. There's so many moving parts that we feel like we do solve a problem that a lot of people have. And it's been nice to go from doing everything to narrowing the focus and having a much simpler business. So you're spot on. Once you start getting some resources behind you, you let go of all the things you don't want to do, pay other people, use tools, software, technology, and you don't have to do them anymore.
Absolutely. So I'm just curious, because I mean, I'm constantly into marketing, love marketing. And I mean, you mentioned the ad, so copywriting. I think it was Wordsmith, something, Ted Nicholson, I think was the guy for that. And I could see, like, you'd nearly know who was actually working from that, because they'd all have the seven figures, or they'd have 97 bucks and stuff like that. And it still seems to work, but I think people are kind of caught up to it now that, like, you have everybody doing the same thing. So like, there's Frank Kearns, there's that Dan Kennedy. I used to subscribe to GKIC for maybe 10 years, and I just felt it kind of ran its course, and I said, I have enough of this. And so now I look at different marketing books. But I'm just curious, like, who is it that you kind of follow, and are you constantly kind of checking all the latest books to find the latest trends?
Well, all those names that you said definitely over the years have been influential. Dan Kennedy, I've read his books, seen a lot of his content. Frank Kern, back in the day, he was someone that was an early pioneer of teaching the online marketing side of things. Interestingly enough, in the last 12 months, I decided to stop following other people because I felt like it was having too much influence on my decision making and my own creativity. So I went from consuming everything and getting all the information. So your Hermosis, all the people that are significant at the moment, to really just listening to myself. I thought after 14 years, I think I have a lot of the answers, and certainly not ignoring the trends and technology and everything that's happening. But the more I stopped listening to other input, listened to my own inner voice and created that space, the more simpler everything became in a business sense, and the clearer I got on what I was going to do and what I was going to create for myself. So in some ways, by letting go of all the input that I was receiving, which is ironic, podcasting and creating content and shutting out a lot of the other content that I was listening to has been a significant transformation on a very personal level for me. So that's been the last 12 months, and it's been pretty surreal what's happened from doing that.
Yeah. I mentioned I stopped doing the GKIC and all the other ones. And what I did is I used to subscribe to Entrepreneur Magazine, Inc. Magazine, Fast Company, and all this. And I just stopped it all. And like, if I look at the podcast, I mean, I bought a few different podcast books and I was checking. None of them told me what I'd done. It was all my own kind of thoughts and how I can do this. I mean, I have six, and like four have got to the top or half percent. There wasn't one book that was telling me what to do. It was just my own kind of creativity. And I think sometimes people feel overwhelmed because they're subscribing to these and they're trying to do everything. And in the end, they're not doing anything right because they're just kind of thinking, this is going to work, this is going to work, this is going to work. And then they're beating themselves up because of that process.
I agree. And people that you're listening to, they have very different visions for their own lives. So if you listen to, like, Grant Cardone's a 10X man, you listen to Tim Ferriss, he's a 4-hour work week. So you're going to get conflicting goals, conflicting ideas. So I think it's really important to have a vision for your own life. So how do you want to live? What does that look like? And really paint that picture, because then you can go, okay, who has created the life that I'm looking to create myself? And that's the person that you can align and tune into, because they're probably going to give the advice that's most relevant, and you can kind of let go of all the other ideas that might conflict with where you want to head with your life. I think that's really important.
You mentioned Grant Cardone, and I mean, I've got the 10X book, and I've looked at a few of his different things, and I mean, he's like high energy. I don't think I could work, but I think you've cooperated with him. You were on his TV kind of things. You might tell us about that experience.
Yeah, in 2015, gosh, 9 years ago now, we were on social media, and Robert Sislow was Grant's videographer, so right hand person following around producing all these videos. And we just built up a rapport with Robert on social media. So this is kind of a hack. If you want to get to someone that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to get to, you go to their circle of influence, build a relationship with them, and then you've got an in. And after a good month of commenting back and forth, sending messages, my business partner at the time, Jack Murray, said to him, hey, Grant doesn't really have a presence in Australia, which was true at the time. And his goal, we knew his mission was to have everyone in the world know his name. So at the time, he was saying 7 billion people. It said we could help him get his name out in Australia. And that's kind of how it started. And then he said, well, do a video and just pitch something to Grant. So Jack and I did this 2.5 minute video saying, hey, look, we know your vision is to everyone to know your name. You're not known down in Australia. We can help with that. And next minute, we ended up getting offered a show on his network, which is called Aussie Closers, which was about selling. And then we got invited onto his podcast, which is called Power Players. And we are going to do it like this on Zoom. And we're like, we probably should fly to Miami and do it in the studio if it's with Grant Cardone. So he cancelled on us the first time. So we had to rebook flights and make our way back over to Miami. But we made the most of it. We took our camera person with us. We spent a couple of days in the office with the team prior to going on the show, just to build some rapport up with everyone in the organization. And then we went on Power Players with Grant. It's one of the worst things I've ever done. I cringe when I look at it, but it really was one of those situations where you got to see someone that was playing and operating at a very high level, doing like you, a lot of shows, a lot of content, had this big think, and just seeing how that type of person operated and getting exposed to that really helped us start to place our vision and understand what we needed to do to achieve what we wanted to achieve in life. So that was a really epic experience, and one that I still look back on and go, how the hell did we end up sitting next to Grant, him interviewing us, not us interviewing him? It was a very surreal moment.
Well, I mean, that's kind of paying attention to what will work, because a lot of people would just take the easy road and just go on that. And first of all, building the relationship to get in there, because that, there's probably thousands of people a week knocking at his door. So it's not easy. I mean, he's like a billionaire, and he's like it's very hard. And the fact that you decided, hey, we're going to go there, Most people wouldn't because they'd be watching the pennies, they'd be going, no. And the fact that he cancelled and he still, but like, I mean, on your LinkedIn profile, and I see a few of your other things, you have the picture, but straight away people go, ooh, he's actually connected. You're sitting down laughing and joking with him from the picture. That was worth a lot of money because that will make people trust you immediately because he's internationally known.
Yeah, we call it camp infiltration, and he's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So that 9 years ago, where he was nowhere near as big as he is today, he's done undercover billionaire since then. We're still able to leverage that. We might look a little bit younger in the photos, but as he grows his profile by that association, it just helps we open doors from a credibility standpoint. Having that social proof, I've still got all the footage on a hard drive from when we were there. So sometimes when someone else is doing a lot of work to build an audience, build a community, you can add value and get that leverage and exposure without having to build it all yourself. So if you can find a way to build a relationship with someone that can connect you to that person, add value to them, make their life better, it can really pay dividends into the future.
Like you mentioned, you were on his podcast, so you've got two, and I believe I have the names there: Content Marketing Podcast and Build Your Personal Brands. You might just kind of touch on them as well.
Yeah, well, interesting enough, I started a podcast, would have been in 2014 with my business partner Jack. We called it the Jack and Az Show, and we just put it on SoundCloud, and that was good fun. And I'd always wanted to go back and do podcasting, but for reasons inside the business, I kept putting it off, and I had all these excuses, got to build the company and all that sort of thing. But I'd always wanted to do it. Something I love doing, speaking, creating content, teaching, and I decided to just bite the bullet and just do it and figure it all out. And it actually started off as called the Marketing Business Wealth Podcast because I didn't know what I wanted to talk about. So like if I call it that, I can evolve. And then I realized, okay, everything I do and everything our business does is around content marketing. So it makes sense to bring the conversation in that direction. So after maybe 15 episodes, we transformed into that. And it's a weekly show, and it's been so much fun. It's something that I look forward to doing every single week. And predominantly in the beginning, it was just solo podcast, but now I have guests on regularly, which is really awesome because I get to pick their brains on areas that I'm not as strong in. And what I found with podcasting, it actually really helps you find your voice as well, and lets you practice your craft. And if you're a speaker, and I know the audience here are speakers, it's probably one of the best ways that you can be anywhere in the world, have your microphone, have your computer set up, and you can deliver and work on your craft, deliver your message, add value, and you're compounding something that can sit online into the future and can be a neat little legacy. I don't look at it as a legacy for the world. I look at my son can go back, listen to those episodes in the future. What was happening with dad 20 years ago? What was he talking about? Is he talking about me? And I think that's exciting because him, and if he has kids, they can get a look under the hood of what life was like. I wish I could have done that with some of my grandparents and even my parents at similar ages in their lives.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, like the value of when you have your podcast, because I mean, if you're doing the video as well, like you can recreate it, or you can take the text. I mean, you can even take from a book, you can create a book based on the people you're interviewing as well, and just get all the content from that. But I mean, like we're doing the shorts. I know that you're doing the stuff like that as well. So you have all the different shorts and putting out, there's so much value from whether it's a 30 minute, an hour, whatever the duration is that you can get from that conversation.
Yeah, the repurposing is such a great strategy. You show up, you deliver, and then you can get the transcript. So you've got written content that you can repurpose into text. You've got the audio that you can cut and reuse that. You've got the video footage where you can cut clips. And from those efforts, you can get all your content done every single week by just doing your podcast. And a lot of people overlook that. And if someone is in a education space, they service a particular sector, there's so many ways you can utilize a podcast. One is to build your own brand, your own business inside that community, but you can also get people that could be clients onto the show, talk to them. And funnily enough, you'll probably find that they might start asking questions about coming in and working with you and doing things like that, which I remember, I think it was someone called Dan Bolton was talking about that. His number one strategy for actually getting clients was he would have people come onto his podcast and at the end they would be interested in his services. So I think at the very least, low level, you get this amazing platform to create all your content, that you build all these assets that you can repurpose, but it's also an incredible way to have a business agenda if that's what you want to do, and to start building a profile in your industry. In some ways, the narrower, the better, because it's easier to stand out than if you're in a sea that's full of lots of people doing the same thing.
Exactly. And I mean, I've got some long-term clients that I've kind of partnered with, not just kind of that they're hiring me, that we're on shareholding together. And it's like, because they were on my thing, we just clicked and we just kept the conversation going. And, same with the forums. I've got forums and people can decide if they want to start a podcast. I'm never trying to sell it to anybody. They just kind of tell me. And, a lot of people, they're playing massive amounts of marketing dollars. And sometimes it's just kind of, you create good content and they'll start coming to you.
Yeah, and you're the perfect case study for that. You do great work, and people can see that you have the capabilities. They get curious and they're like, oh, well, you can solve a problem for me. You've got the resources, you've got the know-how. It just makes sense to pass that on and leverage what you're doing. So I think there's a lot to, you can watch people and model success, people that are doing it really well, and borrow a few things that they're doing to, I guess, take a shortcut to where you're trying to get to.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's something as well in marketing. I mean, like, you just watch, like, for example, on YouTube, you watch Mr. Beast. What's he's doing? How's he doing this? And like, just start studying the top guys. And by just looking at the way that they're doing things, how they're doing their pictures, the keywords and stuff like that, just, I mean, you're not going to get to his number. Well, maybe you do, but you're still going to do a lot better than just kind of putting it out there and just kind of hoping that, because most people, that's their marketing hope. I hope it'll work. I hope people will look at it. I hope doesn't work. It's not a strategy as we've heard. Like,
Yeah, and I've said to anyone, because a lot of people ask, how do I create a content marketing plan as an example or a strategy? I go, you just go to the person who's leading your sector right now, who's the number one person in your space, and you can just have a look. When do they post? What do they post? How often? What hashtags they use? What style of content? All the clues are there. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can just borrow what's working, and that's your plan right there. And you can go, can I match that? If not, cool, I can build up to that. Or maybe you've got the resources where you can outproduce or do more. So you just go to what's the benchmark for success and you just model it. And that's how you get your strategy.
with the AI then, because like you can extract the written content. Have you had clients that kind of use the blogging? I mean, I know some websites, like the ones I have, I actually can put a blog. I keep saying I'll do it, but I kind of never, I got maybe two, but I've heard that it's actually a great way of actually getting lead generation as well, because the search engine optimization, especially if it's done properly. Like, have you had people using that for success?
So one of the best things that you can do from a content creation standpoint for the search engine, because if you can get content that ranks, it's free and it's evergreen until you get outranked. So there's, if you take a keyword for your niche, could be anything. I use weight loss as an example because everyone understands that. You type that into Google. If you scroll down a little bit, there's a people also ask section, and it'll have queries that people are typing into Google. So it actually gives you the headlines that you can use for your content that people are searching for, which will help you rank highly for videos, for blog posts. And then you've got tools like vidIQ that will tell you, if you're creating a video, how many people are actually searching for that query and what is the competition. So if you do that, you can start creating content that's optimized for search. And if you get in a position where you're in one of those top ranking searches and it's for a niche search, so it's right in front of your target clients, it can be a 24/7 asset for your business. So there's really simple things that you can do. And then if you use a tool like AI, if you get your phone out or you have a talk to text app, anything like that, you look at that topic, you say the title, you elaborate, give value on that topic, and then you just give it to a tool like rev.com or the app on your phone. And then you've got the makings of that post, that written content. You could take it over to a tool like ChatGPT and just get it to rewrite it and to make it clean, or you could just edit it up yourself. And then you've got a really targeted piece of content that's relevant and it's optimized for search, that's not guessing what are my target clients or my audience searching for online. You've actually gone and answered their questions that they're looking for when they get to the search bar.
You mentioned vidIQ, I think it's called, isn't it? Yeah. So I subscribe to that, so I use that, and I've TubeBuddy as well. So you get, sometimes it can give you even different titles, and then there's another AI tool, Headliner or something like that, and it'll tell you what the best headline that can be used, and then you're doing the keywords and everything. And it all seems grand, and you're kind of watching, and then you create the nice graphics, and sometimes it can actually do the AI graphic and everything. There's plenty of times that I'll just blast something up, or one of my team will put up something, and I go, "What keywords did you use? That's doing brilliant." Oh, I forgot. No keywords. And it's like, I'm trying to understand it. I've some videos like 20,000 plus, and others might get 10. And I see that across the board. Because I mean, I mentioned prior to recording, I've done like 1,500 interviews. Like, I'll always check people's YouTube, Facebook, the whole shebang. And it's the norm. Like, previous 3 years ago, people were getting massive numbers because there wasn't as much competition out there. I think it's because you have like kids now that are putting YouTube channels, and that's why it's dropped so much. And it's like, I'm trying to figure out the secret sauce. And no matter how much I try, like, I done one recently, and I didn't expect, and it just took off again. This is about 3,000 at the moment. And I'm like, I don't understand it really. I'm trying everything. I'm trying the pictures, trying the title, trying. Is a lot of it down to luck when you kind of try to watch the different keywords and stuff like that?
Well, at the end of the day, there's two things that really drive the algorithm, and that's, first of all, do people click on that when they recommend that video, and then does it retain them? Because their goal is to hold the attention so they can show more ads and increase revenues. So first of all, you've got to be able to get someone to click on your content. If your click-through rate's high, you tick the first box. And then the second one is retention. Do people stay with that piece of content? Which is why sometimes videos like podcasting are hard to get to perform, because in my case, for example, if it's a solo episode, it's just me staring down the camera talking to someone. It's not going to hold their attention. So the only chance I've got is if they're walking around and listening to that. So a lot of the long form podcast episodes that are just me, I know aren't going to perform. I might be able to get people to click on it initially, but to hold their attention when I'm just talking straight to a camera is really hard to do, which is why short form goes really well. Like your reels, your shorts on YouTube, because you're only asking people for a 20 to 60-second commitment in a lot of cases. So if you can deliver value in that short burst, you can get rewarded a lot faster. So if you've got a title that's relevant and catchy, and then in the opening of your content, you deliver on that title. So people are like, yes, you are going to do content on what you said you're going to do in the title. And then you can hold that attention and keep them with that. Your video will start getting recommended. So anytime I do a video that has slides and it educates, I know that'll perform really well, but that makes sense because it's engaging. We're working through something. But if I upload a podcast episode speaking straight to the camera, I might get lucky 1 in 20 and get a little bit of extra traction. So that's kind of how it works: clicks and then holding attention, and then it gets recommended to more people.
I mean, I find it hard doing solo shows. I always say kind of Billy No Mates, you're talking to yourself. It's just a strange one. So with the Podfather, I basically, like, I mean, I think most people realize the media is corrupt, and especially, like, I saw what was going on in Australia and everything, and they were regurgitating lies all around the world. So I was like, I love when this podcast, because there's a load of the podcasters, they're exposing a lot of this, and people are actually hearing truth information. So I don't want people thrown in the towel, because sometimes people, they get, I don't know, 10 or 20 down. And I say, like, if somebody comes to your house or a meeting and there's 20 people, you'd be delighted to come back next week. But for some reason, people
Yes.
are kind of just comparing themselves with Joe Rogan and the million downloads, and they don't kind of look at it like that. But with the Podfather, I kind of done it that it's to help podcasters, but it was like 2 minutes, whatever. And the retention is 100% on all the analytics but like, this is what like some of the things that we use, like listen notes, that tells me where all the percentages are. So I was hoping to maybe get up as far as 70, like Rogan and things like that with the listen score. And it should really be 100 because it, all of them go full. And it's the lowest one. It's 28. I've got other ones that got up to 52 and everything. So I don't really half the time. Like I spoke to a friend recently because I'm working on some stuff with AI, and your man was telling me about like even the batteries in your phone, it's not accurate, it's just making estimates, and loads of things are like that. Even the steps that you do and all this, it's all like kind of guesstimate as done. And I'm wondering, is that the same? Because sometimes, like for example, like I use BitChute, I use Rumble, I put out stuff, but I've learned that sometimes when you just share it a few times, the numbers just go boom. It's like they have AI to go, oh yeah, you've shared it. Now let's reward them. And like at the end of the day, it's about kind of getting sales, whatever you're doing. Like what you're doing, I mean, you're doing the podcast tour and stuff like that. You want to get people that are genuinely interested because you actually know what you're doing. But you don't want to be putting it onto a platform that's making you look like, oh, I've got 10 million views, but no customers. And I think some people, they buy the customers, they buy the leads, and also they're on platforms that are lying to make it look like they're popular.
Yeah, not all views are created equal, and that's really important to understand. And the mindset I've always taken with any piece of content is if two people that need or are looking for this piece of information can get it, then I've achieved the goal of the content. So it's the rule of two for me. And especially if you're in a niche and you're using content for commercial reasons, you might be using it to grow a business. You're better off having 10 people see that who are a fit for your services than 10,000 who would never do business with you. And I think people compare themselves. Mr. Beast is an entertainer, for example. So if you're an entertainer, your goal is to have a broad audience and to entertain as many people as possible in most cases. But if you're a business person and you're in a niche in a sector, then your goal is not entertainment. Your goal is to educate people in your sector. So you do have to sacrifice views, engagement, reach, all those things that are vanity metrics that are good for the ego. But if you can get in front of those people and solve their problems on the commercial side, the money side, you can outperform the people on the entertainment side that are getting millions of views, but they're not making any money. So it's just having that awareness. What is the goal? Why am I creating content? Is it to entertain or is it to be a specialist in a niche and to have a commercial agenda? And then if you can place that, then it'll start to make sense and you'll worry less about the metrics and focus more on the quality of the views, the quality of the audience, the quality of the interactions, which are far more important if you're trying to grow a business.
Years ago, I was doing, I kind of had a real estate business, and I think for the social media, I don't know, was it called Hootsuite or something like that, that you'd post it and it go to the different thing. And I know there's a few of them around now, but because it's so much time, it's like, it's only this video. But when you're posting it, doing the tags and everything, my experience with them is it wasn't connecting with all of them right. Is there software now that actually that you can just put it in and it does all the magic for you instead of wasting hours actually trying to make sure that it's done properly on each platform?
There's Hootsuite still around. I think there's Hero Post is one that we use, but still you're going to get the best performance natively to the platform and you can schedule everything to all the platforms now. So your best bet is to get a VA and to have them schedule the
Yeah.
content for you to the platform. That'll get you best results. That shouldn't stretch the budget. If you've got a VA doing it, shouldn't take them too long either. So that would be my recommendation because if you do schedule it with a third-party software, it will impact the performance of that content. And sometimes you'll see it's posted by Hootsuite or it's posted by Hero
Yeah,
Post when
they're
you see the
marketing
post.
themselves like it.
Yeah, exactly. So try to go native to the platform if you can, schedule it. If you can get a VA or someone like that, pay them to do it. Or if you're starting out, just focus on one platform to make it nice and easy. Which platform has your target audience? Which is the platform that has their attention? What time of the day are they likely to be on the platform? Probably the same as you, and just schedule your content to go out at that time, and you've got your best chance at reaching them in the right place.
And just back on the podcast, because you're with Buzzsprout or Buzzspree, I forget the name of it, but Buzzsprout, yeah. That's where the
Buzzsprout.
yeah. I'm just curious because I mean, like obviously, like I use a few different ones myself, and I'm just curious, what was the reason behind using that, and like how do you find it?
Just the distribution. I When I started, I was like, how do I get it on Spotify, Apple, the main platforms, Google Podcast, and Amazon? And I think I just Googled it. I might have watched a YouTube video to go who does that. Might have been the first one that came up, and it was very user friendly. When I jumped in, I could work it out, which is a big tick for me. And it's very simple. You just upload your episode, you sync it with all the podcast hosting platforms that you want your show to go on. You put in your one description, your one show notes, all those things, and it puts it out across all those platforms. So I didn't overly research. It was the one that I just stumbled into first, and I'm always a fast action taker. So I jumped in. It was easy enough, and I've just stuck with it and haven't looked anywhere else, to be honest.
Oh, fair enough. With the AI, because we touched on that, and I mean I use one for one of the podcasts, and it gives me titles, but it also gives me the description. And I just started playing with it, and it was like, holy wow, this is amazing the way it's actually written. It's for the Polish one that I do, and it describes exactly the conversation. But it's got errors. Like you have to go in and check it. Like, it'll spell the name wrong and it'll websites. And I suppose with my Irish accent, it doesn't understand me half the time. So it's like sometimes people think you just AI press a button and off you go. But the reality is, yeah, it's creating the content, but you need to actually either yourself or your VA, as you say, that's going through it in detail and making sure it goes out right. Because I see people and they put it out, they do the shots, and they didn't even check it. You're not doing yourself justice by putting this out. You're just kind of splattering stuff out. And I think better to have less of quality than just splattering out anything that the AI creates for you.
Yeah, AI is one of those tools that gets misused significantly. And if you're not doing the hybrid approach where there's human quality control and quality assurance, you're going to get either duplicate content, you're going to get factually incorrect content. I've seen some shorts, some podcast episodes that I am in the short with, they haven't checked the captions. They've just let the AI machine do it, and they're very inaccurate. So it completely misrepresents what the conversation was about. So people are not training the AI machine. They haven't got that that checkpoint in place. They're going to put things out that do hurt their brand and make them look like they have cut corners, which they have, because they've just gone, here, AI, I've put it through Opus Clip or a tool like that where it just automatically cuts it and can post it for you. If you don't do those other steps, it's going to have a massive influence on the performance, because people are going to go, oh, I'm not watching this content. I've seen it before. It's not accurate. It's lazy. And the attention is going to go to the people that do take those extra steps to produce great content. And they're the ones that are going to get rewarded in the algorithm, and their content's going to get preference, and yours is going to get moved over to the side. So you can't just use AI to press a button and go, I'm done. You have to do the hybrid approach, or else you'll get found out pretty quickly.
I had somebody that was a guest, and it was like over a year ago that they were a guest, but they sent me not so long ago a clip. Hey, share this everywhere. And like, this is a serious business person. I'm not even in it. The conversation starts in the middle that nobody will know what it means. And it's like, so there's a lot of that going out there. So I mean, at the end of the day, you have to step inside the viewer's eyes and go, does this make sense? And like, I'm just curious what way, like what I've learned is when you're posting on like Facebook and things like that, a lot of the times people do it and then they put the link as well inside the post and they don't show that to nobody. So we've learned that you put your post, the video that's going to grab attention. Sometimes we include the link inside it. So for example, the Polish one, we have like, it looked like a Polish flag with the video on the side, and we'll either have Learn Polish Podcast or my bio link that's in it. But underneath as the comment, we'll post the show. And that seems to work 10 times better. But a lot of the times people are posting stuff. And like, as I say, I check people's YouTube, I check the Facebook as well. Most people, before you post something, you get 20, maybe sometimes 100 views and everything. If I put up a picture of my son, they'll all heart it and everything. I put up a video, nobody's, but that's the norm. That's not them attacking me or me being shadow banned. That seems to be the norm. So it's like, we have to pay attention as well, because a lot of people, they're doing the marketing, but they're not tracking what's going on or not seeing, hey, what's going on here. And if you kind of pay attention and you're watching and even tracking it as well, because a lot of times people aren't even knowing where the leads are coming from. I mean, I'm shocked at the amount of businesses they don't even ask where the lead came from. So they're just thinking, yeah, our marketing is working, and it could be just one thing that's working, and they're putting their money out in the tent. So you've obviously witnessed that as well.
Really good points. And if you do put an external link that's going to deviate someone to another platform, of course, it's going to get punished because they don't want the users to go to another platform. So, like you said, you can either have an engaging video where you say the destination in the video, and that's one way around that, or pin that in the comments section below so you don't sabotage the post, or you are boosting and promoting it and paying to circulate that. And you're spot on. The amount of people that can't tell you where their leads are coming from, their referrals, their business, their clients is astounding. And people don't even know what to measure, or they're focusing on the wrong data or the wrong metrics is another thing that I see happen a lot. If you are doing any form of marketing, you need to be able to measure what's going on, because then you can optimize. You can also double down on what's working. You can eliminate what's not working. And that's how you grow a business. It's 1% improvements all the time. And if you don't know what's happening, you can't manage what you're not measuring. And it's, unless you don't have plans or goals and you don't really want to take the business anywhere and it doesn't matter, it's irresponsible in my view to not seeing all the having all the data in front of you so you can make informed decisions about what you're doing into the future.
So at the start, I promised people, like 90 minutes will give them a month's content. So I can't,
Yeah.
not discuss that. So you might let people know, how can they do 90 minutes and get a month's content?
This is a problem that we accidentally stumbled across solving, oddly enough. So we had content as a part of our services at the agency, and the biggest challenge we were running into, we couldn't get what we needed from clients all the time. We spent more time chasing them up than actually creating the content. And one day, one of my clients, Mark, who's in bricklaying, we were on the Zoom like this, and he goes, "I want to create some videos." And I was like, "Oh," I was in my mind, I was like, how that was going to work. And it just came to me. It's like, okay, I'm just going to start really good at having conversations. You can imagine, if you know what an Australian is like in your mind, the stereotypical Australian, laid back, easygoing, easy to talk to. This is
Kind of
Mark to a
fosters.
T. Kenna Foster's, you got it. So picture that, you've got Mark. And I thought, well, he's good at having conversations. So I just started asking him questions like, so tell me, how'd your business get started? What are you seeing in the industry? How do you make things better for builders? How do you increase culture on site? How do you add value to clients? And he was just talking to me as if we were having a chat at a bar. And I was like, I've got this. I understand how to get clients to create great content, because if we put a camera on him and said, speak to the camera and answer those questions, he would have froze, he would have lost his voice, he would have felt awkward, and it would have been 20 takes to get a terrible piece of content. So we took that 20-minute conversation that was spontaneous, and I gave it to my team, said, just cut as many clips that we can use from that conversation. And I got roughly 12 clips back the next day, and we put all the branded captions on it. I gave it to Mark, and he was like, what just happened? And then I was like, okay, so we can take this to the next level. So what if we went and found out what our clients were searching for online? And as I alluded to earlier, if you go to that people also ask section on Google by putting in a keyword, you go to vidIQ, all of a sudden you can get a list of 12 questions that are tailored towards searches that you can show up each month to a conversation just like we're having right now. So we do ours on Google Meet. We get our clients to show up on their iPhone and they have it in selfie mode because we create this for short form content. We've got the 12 questions that we know their audience are searching for. We'll throw a few story related questions in there, tell us something funny that happened with a client just to mix it up a little bit. And we'll just ask them the questions. There's no pressure. They just talk to us naturally, like we're having a conversation. Takes between 30 to 90 minutes for that to take place. Their part's done. We'll cut a clip for each of those questions. So we've got a tailored piece of content for those search queries. So we know that their target audience is actively searching for that. We'll then take the audio and we'll transcribe that into text, and then we'll repurpose that into written posts. So for our clients show up to the interview where they've got their questions once a month, and then they have the conversation with us, and we just repurpose that into their videos, into their written posts. And that's how we do the 30 days of content in 90 minutes.
Excellent. And I presume you offer as well that you do the whole lot, you upload it and everything. Because some people, they'll get the customers and it's like, what you said earlier, you don't like painting and doing handiwork. It's like some of them, they hate the social media and they'd prefer to just keep doing it. So when somebody is actually doing all this for them, it's a win-win. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. And then you're also creating the content for the platform that their audience is on. So some of our clients predominantly focus on LinkedIn, others are on the Meta platform, so Facebook, Instagram, others are more YouTube focused. So we're able to craft the content for the platforms that they're playing on, and then have a very deliberate content strategy for that platform. And that works really well on the business side of things. So they're able to actually move the needle with standing out in the industry, having a brand story, solving problems of their target audience, and especially ones that are in really narrow niches. We've got a client that's in rail engineering, the only rail engineer definitely in Australia that's doing the content that they're doing. So they went from obscurity in a couple of months to everyone in the industry talking about them, to getting large government tenders because they were the talk of the town. So if you're in a narrow sector and you start doing content, you're not competing with many other voices. So you can have an immediate impact. If you're in a much bigger pool, it's a bit harder, but if you can narrow down a little bit, you might get very quick results with the strategy like that.
Excellent. So now the $1 million question. When you put out content on YouTube, say the video, grand, it's there, whatever. Shorts, it's basically when you kind of know what's going on, it's like a day, maybe two, gone. Well, it's not, it doesn't disappear, but it's the views don't keep going like a YouTube video can. I mean, I have some videos or even a podcast, like my first Polish one gets thousands of downloads every month. It's like just one of these things. But shorts don't work like that. I think Reels is kind of the same. TikTok is kind of, I mean, it takes off and it can get lucky. But usually, if you kind of look at your numbers and you kind of understand and you're tracking it, it's usually the first few days or even the first few hours. And if it depends on how people react with it, if they're listening to the whole lot, then it'll show it to more people and stuff like that. When you know something has worked in them, either TikTok, the Reels, or Shorts, should you repost it like a month later, 2 months later, or are you damaging yourself by the followers that are watching everything you're doing?
Definitely go again. Don't want to go into close proximity. The reason for that is very simple. As you get new followers and new audience members, they haven't seen that content yet. So by posting that content that historically has performed well, then you're introducing that to them. And usually, especially with short form, it's not that big a deal for your existing audience to revisit that content if they want to. And we've got examples with some of our clients. We know a very specific type of content always goes really well. One of our clients, Sean Sewell, is a great example. So when we do stage content, so he speaks a lot. So rather than doing the 30 days in 90 minutes where we interview him, we take his stage conversations and we cut clips from that. And because of the presence of being on stage, it's really good positioning. And his audience is business owners. So whenever we take a story that he tells on stage about business and we put that out as a short, it always pops. So anytime we want to get a clip that performs really well for him, that's up our sleeve. And that's something to note too. If you're a speaker, I know the audience here are speakers. If you got stage content, repurpose it. And story-based content always performs well because people want to know what happened in the story. There's a start, there's a middle, and an end. When you're giving educational value, it's a little bit of a different process. You're propositioning, I'm going to teach you something, and then you've got that short window to hold their attention and teach them what you promise. But with a story, there's a buy-in if people are curious to know what happens. So you can always go to story-based content as a way to, I guess, put a human side into what you're doing, but also to hold the attention. So there's a few things that have worked really well for some of our clients.
Like you mentioned, like the speaker, because John Maxwell, he's written a load of books, and basically what he has is he has a ghostwriter that either has the recordings or is there, and they're in his words. Like you wouldn't know that he has a ghostwriter, because if you've ever listened to him, you think, yeah, this is me. But he's just got a very good ghostwriter that's able to create so many books based on him just being on stage. Like he couldn't do that if he was writing it normally.
Great, great example. And a lot of speakers have that ability. If you're doing workshops, if you're on stage, you do a long keynote, you got the makings of a book there if it's long enough. So you can take those resources. It's still, and that's what I love about the way we create content for our clients. It's still their words. So even when we transcribe it into text, it's their words that have come out of their mouth. So while other people are taking something from the AI machine that's predictive text based on stuff that already exists, these are authentic words. And we know that no one else has posted this before because it's come out of an original content form. So for speakers, if you keep building up your content assets, you can leverage it. You can give it to a ghostwriter, you can give it to tools and get it repurposed and done for you. And you can stay in your lane and do what you love, which would be speaking, and stay where you are most lit up and pass everything off to other resources that can do it for you.
Like just when you have a team, right, that's doing it, there's some stuff like Facebook, you can actually give them kind of manager status, so they can do nearly everything, but they can't delete the account or whatever. And I think LinkedIn allows that, but Instagram doesn't, and there's some other ones. And yeah, it's great having a VA, but a lot of times it goes pear-shaped. Are you better off, because you're actually putting, especially if you've built it up, your assets, you're passing it over to somebody that, just if they get if something goes wrong, because it's like a business relationship, if you're going into partnership, right, it's like a personal relationship, spouse. So is there, like, I find it strange that some of the platforms don't allow that, because they know that most people are outsourcing it. But like, what's your take on that? With, say, like, I know there's a few, TikTok, I don't even think you can do TikTok as well, that you can actually have like an admin, which would be very helpful, because you could just give them access to a load of videos and say, look, put out this every few days and whatever. But they don't. So what's your kind of take on the kind of security, I suppose, of your asset?
With If you've got a Facebook page and the Instagram account, you can link those two together through the Meta platform. So you can have someone as a manager do those platforms by giving them that access and still protect it from that level. On LinkedIn, you can have someone as an admin or invite someone to manage a page. So you can do that without having access to your personal account, but you'd have to use a third-party tool for content if you wanted to schedule it to your personal account without them getting into your account. So you would have to use a hero post or something like that to achieve that outcome. YouTube, you can have a manager. So you can have someone that can manage the account but can't interfere with the brand that you've built. So a lot of the platforms do have that capability. So if you do go down the route of a VA, you want to make sure you do protect, just in case it does go pear-shaped, and make sure the level of access that you're giving them, you are comfortable with, and they couldn't get hacked as well. That's another risk. Even if they wouldn't do anything wrong, what if they got hacked and someone got in? And so you
Actually,
want
it
to
happened with
protect.
one of our clients. He wasn't really doing social media, so we were building up everything. Of course, he wanted access, and another way they have, like, Facebook have all these, like, hey, your account is going to be deleted. Click on this, and he did it, and I was like, we were after setting up ads and everything, and it created over on a week's work for us. And like, I have seen so many people fall for that. And what annoys me is, like, straight away Facebook could have the AI built into that to start. It's like they encourage it, they want it, because I get 5 of them a day. Because I mean, I've got 6 podcasts. I'm constantly getting that, but obviously I don't fall for it. But a load of people do, and I think Zuckerberg and his team, like, shame on them, because they could solve that immediately.
Every week I will get a message from a client because they will see a notification saying your page has been set for deletion or you violated. And I have to console them and say, if you see anything, do not touch it. And like you, I see 5 or 6 a day now. Every post, every ad, that's out there will get a message from someone that said you violated, etc., etc. So the good news is it happens so much that most people are aware of it. But all it takes is that one time where someone's like, "Oh, I'm going to click on the link and
Because
dispute
they
this,"
lose the
and next
logo.
minute,
Just for those that haven't experienced this, they'll have the
yeah.
Meta logo. They'll even sign it as if it's them. But I mean, you just kind of look at it in detail and you realize it. But it is so, I understand how somebody that's not kind of experienced could fall for that.
And that's how easy it is to get compromised. So you do want to be aware of what level of access you're giving someone and what would happen if they got compromised, let alone if you get compromised. And that's why when it comes to the content side, we back everything up. So even if an account did get compromised and deleted, we've still got all the content. So if we had to rebuild, we've still got all those assets ready to go. And it's also why I say have a primary and a secondary platform. And ideally, a secondary platform would be a search platform like YouTube. So if there was an incident where everything did get deleted or you got suspended or shut down, which I've seen happen to people before, you've still got, yes, another digital. I think over the years, everyone who's been in the game for a while has copped a slap on the wrist at some point. You've still got a backup asset where people can find you and find content and so forth. So it's wise to have a contingency up your sleeve.
And like just on that, because for those just listening, I put my hand up when he was saying that because I had the Awakening podcast, so that's one exposing fraud and corruption, and like that got strike, and eventually just taken off. And I used actually the marketing. I took a screenshot of that and just shared that I'm on BitChute, and I went from the top 1% to the top 0.5%. So I used it against them. But I have the crypto podcast, and I didn't have any strikes or anything, and it just disappeared. And I had my team working me, and this what's happened? And I was like, I don't know, and we couldn't find it. And it was like, you can't contact anybody in YouTube. And like 8 months later, just about a month ago, they go, after reviewing it, yeah, it's okay. And they put it back. And you're like, oh. It's like, so like some people, that's their business. And they're kind of like, whether they're influencer status, as they call themselves, they're making their money from promotions and stuff like that. You have to be very careful and try to have a few of them and even have an email list to take so that if something like that happens, because there's people overnight, they just, their income just disappears and you have to be very careful.
There were some famous cases where people that had monetized on YouTube and that was their income source had their channels suspended or shut down because they did content that violated the terms. And it's that easy. So that's why having all your eggs in a basket that's controlled by a third party or another platform is extremely risky because you are one strike away from having your livelihood
And not
taken
even a
away from
strike,
you.
like, because I didn't get any strike
Yeah.
on. And with you, TikTok, I stopped putting out, like, I put out, say, the Polish one or even the speaking one. I got 13,000 views on one. And I was like, oh, this is brilliant. The next strike, community warning. I got 9 of them. And I was like, this is true. The information, I don't put out crap. I put out stuff that I know 100% to be true. And like, I was like, I'm not going to put too much energy into this because they'll just take me off overnight. And I'm after building this. You have the followers, and you think, I mean, like now I do some of my client stuff because I know it's kind of safer than the stuff I put out. And it seems to be okay. You see people bookmarking it. But there's an awful risk to that as well, like because they don't even respond. It's a cut and paste that you, if you do get a respond. So it's like, I hate building up something and you've no control.
I agree. There's too much at stake if you don't have those contingencies in place, and we get to curate through our process that we use the content so we know when we make it that it's in line with the guidelines and we're ticking all the boxes, and we're generally dealing with business owners as well, so they'll be talking about business specific applications. And there are a few areas that you do want to understand some of the areas that do get flagged because there are categories that are dealt with very differently to others. And I can understand why crypto might have been one of those ones that he got disappeared and they've reviewed it and then let back in because that had, I remember a few years ago, there was a big storm on Facebook about it. And yeah, some topics, even weight loss and health areas can get yeah, attention and they can be more risky than others
I
to
mean,
talk
I
about
think,
those
is it
areas.
Kevin Trudeau? I forget his name, something with Kevin Trudeau. He had a weight loss book. He got 8 years in jail because he was saying you lose weight from this. So
Yeah,
you have to be careful as well what you're putting out there.
definitely. And if you go into political areas and you talk about things that could be perceived as advice in, sensitive topics, you're walking a tightrope. So it does help, again, to have a niche and to have a lane that you stay in and not to venture too far from that. So you do know what you're talking about and what you're doing. And yeah, I've seen plenty of people have ad accounts shut down when their whole business was run off a advertising campaign that they relied on for clients to come through the door, people that had their followers, and that was their audience that they generated their sales from. So it is scary to think that a platform owns you to that degree. And I'm always big on having pillars. So your business isn't just held up by one pillar, it's held up by multiple pillars. So if one gets knocked down, you've still got other things holding your business up.
And it's actually happened. One of the guys that he's like I partnered with him now, and he was his leads was with Google Ads, and he's helping people with anxiety and addictions, and like it was working fantastic, and it just stopped overnight. So like the podcasting, because we talked about that at the start, that's what I know. I'm getting them on successful podcast, but I've got about 10 other different things that are working as well, affiliate system and all that, because you can't have one lane that's feeding you, because somebody, if there's a car crash, how'd you get fed? So you have to have a load of different lanes coming off the highway, and that way you're protecting yourself.
Definitely. And I know myself, there was in 2019, we were still doing Facebook ads for clients. There was this massive account shut down. Anyone that had had any violation or any outstanding thing on any account, so if someone hadn't paid a bill on an account, they just went through and they shut down everyone's account. So it went from overnight, all these agencies had lost access to their ability to advertise for clients, and you're able to dispute it and get reinstated pretty quickly. But they just flicked a switch, and it happened to everyone that I knew that was in the agency game, and that's how quickly businesses can get compromised. And it's really, really important to understand the risks of what you're doing, because if you don't, you can definitely get the rug pulled from under your feet and find yourself in a situation that's not pleasant.
We're kind of talking about the kind of things that they're doing. Like one of the guys, a friend of mine, he was a podcaster as well, was always supporting me with the Awakening one, giving thumbs up and everything. And one day he kind of said, I'm sure I gave that a thumbs up. So he went through all my posts and all his thumbs up were removed.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what you're up against. And most people wouldn't know that. I wouldn't have known it because I'm not going to be checking things like that. But he checked it. So finally, uh, everyone would love to have something go viral. It's like what's the numbers that you class it as being viral? But have you any tips for people on what to do to hope to get something that will go viral?
If you go to Google Trends, and it doesn't matter what sector or what category you're in for your content, you can take a search and see what is trending, what are the topics that are taking off in my space. And that's where you can ride something that has conversation and has interest. So your best bet is to jump on one of those topics that you can start a conversation around and create a piece of content that encourages two-way interaction. So people to comment and to get involved in it, because when people engage, it tells the algorithm, hey, people are responding to this, let's show it to more people. So if I was going to say, what's a tip or a strategy to create a piece of content that has that opportunity? Go to Google Trends, find the hottest trending topic in your niche or your category, and then create a piece of content where you're asking people in the content to comment, go back and forth. What are your thoughts on this? Let's talk about it. Let's get the conversation going. And that will help it stay relevant for longer and keep it at the top of the newsfeed.
Excellent. Love it. Listen, Aaron, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. You might let people know where they can find you.
Well, the 30 days in 90 minutes content creation system, we give it away for free. So if you go to contentonly.au, you can download that and you can go ahead, follow the system that we talked about today, and just follow the tutorial and create 30 days of content in 90 minutes every month for your business, and get on the field and start getting some wins from the content game.